conflict between Shia and Sunni Muslims goes back to the 7th century and the death of the Prophet Mohammad. Yet a spotlight has been shown in the last few decades on the differences between the two groups as the number of clashes between them has intensified world over. 87 to 90% of the 1.8 billion Muslims in the world are Sunni Muslims, while Shias are a small minority at just 10 to 13%. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Yemen, Pakistan, Indonesia, Turkey, Algeria, Morocco and Tunisia are predominantly Sunni. Significant populations of the Shia Muslims can be found in Iraq and Iran. Large Shiite minority communities are also in Yemen, Bahrain, Syria and Lebanon. It is in areas of the world where Sunni and Shiite populations are in close proximity that conflict has arisen. Coexistence in Iraq and Lebanon, for example, is often difficult. The religious differences are so embedded in the culture that intolerance often leads to violence. Both Sunnis and Shias draw their faith and practice from the Quran and the life of Prophet Muhammad. Both agree on most of the fundamentals of Islam. In practicing their religion, both groups recognize the 5 pillars of Islam, which are Iman, which means testifying the existence of only one God, that's Allah, and Muhammad as his prophet. Namaz, taking part in prayers 5 times a day. Zakat, giving charity. Ramzan, fasting, and Hajj for the wealthy, which is pilgrimage to Makkah. However, there are differences related to historical events, ideological heritage, and issues of leadership. The first and central difference emerged after the death of Prophet Muhammad in 632 AD. The issue was who would be Caliph. The majority believed that his rightful successor was his father-in-law and close friend Abu Bakr Siddiqui. But a small group believed the Prophet's successor should be Ali ibn Abi Talib, his cousin and son-in-law, as well as the father of his grandchildren Hassan and Hussein. Subsequently, those Muslims who put their faith in Abu Bakr came to be known as Sunnis, or those who follow the Sunnah, the sayings, deeds and traditions of the Prophet Muhammad, while those who trusted in Ali came to be known as Shia, which in Arabic means a group or supportive party of people. They became the party of Ali. Abu Bakr became the first caliph and Ali became the 4th caliph. However, Ali's leadership was challenged by Hazrat Aisha, the Prophet's wife and daughter of Abu Bakr. Hazrat Aisha and Ali's forces went to battle against each other near Basra in Iraq in 656 AD. Hazrat Aisha was defeated, but the roots of division were deepened. Subsequently, Muawiyah, the Muslim governor of Damascus, also went to battle against Ali, further deepening the divisions in the community. In the years that followed, Muawiyah assumed the control of the caliphate and founded the Umayyad dynasty in 670 AD. Ali's youngest son, Hussein, who was born of Fatima, the Prophet's daughter, led a group of partisans in Kufa in Iraq against Muawiya's son Yazid. For Shias, this battle, known as the Battle of Karbala, holds enormous historical and religious significance. One of the most important dates for Shia Muslims is the 10th day of the holy month of Muharram. Muharram is the first month in the Islamic lunar calendar. Shia Muslims mark the anniversary of the death of Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of the Prophet, as an occasion of collective atonement through lamentation and self-flagellation. Stemming from the initial question of political leadership, some aspects of spiritual life also differ between the Shias and Sunnis. This includes rituals of prayers and marriage. In this sense, many compare the two groups with Catholics and Protestants. While Sunni Muslims rely on the Sunnah, which is the teachings and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, to guide their actions, the Shiites rely on their Ayatollahs. One of the most well-known was Ayatollah Musawi Khomeini, who served as the first supreme leader of Iran from 1979 until his death in 1989. Shia Muslims consider Ali and the leaders who came after him as Imams. Most believe in a line of 12 Imams, last of whom a boy is believed to have vanished in the 9th century in Iraq after his father was killed. Shias anticipate the return of the Mahdi or Messiah. The Sunnis regard the first 3 caliphs before Ali as rightly guided and themselves as the true followers of the Prophet's traditions. Sunni rulers embarked on conquests that extended the caliphate into North Africa and Europe. The last caliphate ended with the fall of the Ottoman Empire after the World War I. Some ritualistic differences can also be noted between the two. When Sunnis pray, they kneel so that their head touches their prayer mat. Shias, however, kneel so that their head touches bare earth or small clay block taken from a holy place. In the last 4 decades, the Sunni-Shiite sectarian clash has become a modern conflict fueled by a political, nationalist and geostrategic rivalry. The sectarianized wars of today's Middle East have their roots in modern nationalism, not as much in Islamic theology. These sectarian conflicts have become proxy wars between Iran and Saudi Arabia, 2 nationalist actors pursuing their strategic interests. Linking the past to today begs a simple question. Are Muslims in Iraq, Syria, Yemen and Lebanon still fighting the same war going back to the early years of the faith? Is religion at the heart of their conflict? In fact, religion is only a small part of a much bigger and complex geostrategic and political picture. The bleeding in Syria or Yemen would not stop if Sunnis and Shiites would suddenly agree on who was the rightful successor of Muhammad. Looking at the sectarian conflicts of the Middle East through the lens of a 7th century conflict is therefore both simplistic and misleading. The Sunni axis, led by Saudi Arabia, is mainly supported by petro-monarchies of the Gulf and Western powers. The Shiite crescent is led by Iran and has as its main supporters in Syria, in Lebanon via Hezbollah, and significant segments of the populations of Iraq, Bahrain and Yemen. There is also an important Shiite minority in Saudi Arabia which has become increasingly active in recent years, demanding more rights. The division between Shiites and Sunnis has served to justify many wars and revolutions, including the ongoing Syrian civil war and the conflict in Yemen, which now have an ever greater potential of spreading to other parts of the Middle East. The 47 executions for terrorism and sedition in Saudi Arabia, which included the killing of Shiite cleric Nimr al-Nimr, who was just found guilty of criticizing the Saudi monarchy, have increased the already high tensions between Sunnis and Shiites. The West is more of a bystander, even though Western governments have tended to favor Saudi Arabia at the official level in this clash. The problem in Saudi Arabia is that not only is it a Sunni state, it is a Wahhabi state. Wahhabism, an ultra-conservative ideology that insists on a literal interpretation of the sacred texts, is the centerpiece of the Saudi state. Wahhabism, in fact, is also at the root of radical Islamist groups such as Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. To better understand the significance and impact of Wahhabism, imagine if a Christian sect insisted on a literal interpretation of the Old Testament and then took hold of political power. So the war within Islam between 2 rival communities of Shias and Sunnis may have originated in the 7th century, but its current form is more than just a theological contest.